Welcome to today's explainer. I want you to step close and just listen carefully. We're about to enter a space where the very breath in your lungs might actually betray you. Today, we're exploring a grim, dark, gothic fable. This is a story where grammar isn't just some boring set of rules you learn in school, but a living, predatory force. We are going to examine a world where every single spoken word secretly buries its own ancient, forgotten corpse. Okay, let's dive into this, because this isn't just a spooky campfire tale. It's a profound, almost inescapable philosophical trap. I mean, we use language every single day, right? We just assume it belongs to us. We assume it's this handy tool we wield to express our deepest thoughts. But this fable forces us to totally bypass our comfortable assumptions and ask a terrifying question. What if the tool is actually wielding us? What if the very medium meant to define our identity is just quietly waiting to devour it? Prologue, the broken chord. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is this central aphorism. The tongue constructs the cage that the song intends to escape. To really get this curse, we have to look at philosopher Johann Gottlieb Fichte's idea of a violent clash between pure expression and rigid boundaries. Think about it. You have an emotion, an intent, a beautiful, limitless song inside your head. But the very second you try to share it, you have to force it through the physical tongue, the rigid rules of vocabulary and syntax. The act of creating meaning inherently traps your original boundless intent inside a cage. So this lays out that Fichtean conflict perfectly. On one side, we've got the song, which represents our thesis. It's pure expression seeking absolute freedom. On the exact opposite side, we have the tongue, our antithesis. That's language, structure, and historical evolution creating these strict boundaries. Our natural human desire to connect through the freedom of the song is immediately restricted by the physical cage of the tongue. And in our fable, when these two collide, the resulting synthesis isn't some neat compromise, it is an absolute catastrophe. Part 1. The incantation of the sound. And this brilliantly illustrates our narrative spine today. The curse unfolds in 5 distinct stages. It starts with the call, moves into the sound, dips down into the silence, culminates in the word, and finally ends with the echo. So picture this. Our story kicks off when a traveling minstrel wanders into a quiet, totally isolated village, carrying an instrument that completely defies logic. It's a lute, but it entirely lacks strings, and yet it hums with this terrifying frequency. He tells the villagers that his music doesn't come from plucking physical wires. Instead, he claims his music lives deep inside the changing roots of verbs. He begins to perform, and as the villagers lean in to listen, something deeply unnatural happens. The dead syllables, those ancient, forgotten phonetic corpses buried secretly inside their everyday spoken words, actually begin to breathe. Part 2. The grammar of the uncanny. You know, true horror, it doesn't always come from some monster lurking in the dark. It really uncoils when the most familiar things turn completely alien on you. Let's look at the starting point of the villagers' language. They lived in this comfortable state of Heimlich. It's a German word that represents the cozy warmth of the familiar, the native hearth, a place of total safety and belonging. It was the foundation of their lives. But the minstrel isn't just playing music. He's actively manipulating the historical evolution of their language. He starts altering their vowels, using an ancient Germanic sound shift. And bam, here is the violent shift. Through this creeping philological drift, the minstrel takes the Heimlich, the cozy, the safe, and literally twists the vowels until it becomes the unheimlich, the uncanny, the terrifying, the completely alien. It is truly disturbing when you realize that the words these villagers trusted, the cozy hearth songs they literally sang to their children, are suddenly weaponized into these sudden, terrifying funeral hymns. By merely shifting the sounds of their vowels, the minstrel is estranging the speakers from their own identities. I mean, just imagine the sheer, suffocating panic of that for a second. You turn to your lifelong neighbor, you open your mouth to speak, just to ask for help, but the sounds that come out are foreign, ancient, and cold. Neighbors stared at each other without even recognizing their own native tongue. The very medium meant to define their community was dissolving right in their mouths. They were losing the ability to connect, completely isolated in a crowd of their own peers. Part 3. The lesson of the instrument. So the crucial point here is that a dark parable like this demands a sharp, physical sacrifice. The linguistic trap is about to spring shut. The bard invites the town magistrate to step forward and pluck the invisible strings of his humming lute. The magistrate reaches out, but as he tries to play the music plays him.
His flesh begins to harden, first his fingertips, then his hands, his fingers violently freezing into stiff, rigid wood. The crowd watches in absolute horror as they realize this performance requires anatomy, not just mere art. The ultimate realization hits them. To speak the ultimate song, one must literally become the instrument. Anatomy merges with the instrument of their own entrapment.
Part 4, the philology of the curse. Okay, let's drop the energy for a second and really unpack the horrifying mechanics of what just happened. The sources reveal a deeply terrifying truth. Words do not merely describe reality, they actively consume the speaker. When the minstrel traced the town's words back to their ancient roots, he didn't just uncover history, he unraveled the very fabric of reality itself. The abstract rules we take for granted every day, syntax and grammar, materialized. The syntax of the minstrel's final verse literally locked the town in place. Grammar became the physical scaffolding of an eternal, completely silent prison for these citizens. And this right here is the ultimate grim synthesis of that Fichtean dialectic we talked about earlier. The pure expression of the song just couldn't exist in our world without a cage. And the language of the old gods is so ancient and so powerful that it requires a literal human offering to manifest. By delving into the absolute deepest origins of speech, the minstrel invited the total destruction of the present world. The speaker's body literally becomes the cage. Part 5, the epilogue of echoes. The ritual is done. The silent minstrel turns his back on the frozen town and just walks away into the dark, foggy forest, leaving absolutely nothing behind but the ruins of communication. And this is the ultimate tragic irony for the villagers. As they stand frozen in their grammatical prison, trapped as the physical scaffolding of a dead language, they experience a pain beyond measure. But no citizen could scream, because the nouns had been stolen. Language was a dangerous trap, disguised as this beautiful gift. And now that the trap has snapped shut, they don't even possess the vocabulary to label their own suffering. The source material actually describes this final, chilling state as linguistic nihilism. It's this profound philosophical void, the total loss of expression, where meaning functions entirely as a trap rather than a bridge to understanding. The empty village now stands as a dark, physical warning to any travelers. The minstrel's song has finally ended, but in that petrified town, the terrible quiet still plays. We use words every single day to define ourselves, right? To reach out, to sing our own songs. But this Gothic fable leaves us staring into a terrifying void, fundamentally altering how we view the syllables rolling off our tongues right now. If language is a trap disguised as a gift, what happens to us when the terrible quiet finally plays?